The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty road leading into Fort Worth, Texas, and Adelaide Bennett wondered if trading vegetables in this God-forsaken heat was worth the few coins she might earn, until she looked up and saw the cowboy leaning against the fence post watching her approach with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken stories. It was the summer of 1878, and Adelaide had been making this journey from her small farm on the outskirts of town twice weekly for the past 3 months since her father's death. At 22 years old, she had learned quickly that surviving alone meant swallowing pride and doing whatever work needed doing. The vegetable cart her father had built creaked and groaned under the weight of tomatoes, squash, carrots, and potatoes, all carefully arranged in wooden crates she had scrubbed clean that morning. The cowboy straightened as she drew closer, and Adelaide felt her breath catch despite herself. He was tall, probably around 27 or 28, with dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck beneath a worn brown hat. His clothes spoke of hard work and long days, and there was a weariness in the set of his shoulders that Adelaide recognized because she carried it herself. "Need help with that cart, miss?" His voice was low and rough, like gravel wrapped in velvet. Adelaide considered refusing. She had learned to be wary of kindness that often came with expectations attached. But the wheel on her cart had been wobbling for the last mile, and she still had another half-mile to reach the market square. "The wheel is loose," she admitted. "If you know anything about fixing such things, I would be grateful." He moved toward her with an easy grace that belied his size, crouching down to examine the wheel. His hands were large and calloused, the hands of a man who knew hard work intimately. "Name is Samuel Barrett," he said without looking up. "Most folks call me Sam. Adelaide Bennett." She watched as he produced a small tool from his pocket and began tightening the bolts that held the wheel in place. "You carry tools in your pockets. Learned a long time ago to be prepared for most anything." He glanced up at her, and she saw flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Been working at the Double R Ranch just outside town for about 5 years now. Before that, I drifted. Fixed a lot of wheels, broken fences, and shattered things in those years." There was something in the way he said "shattered things" that made Adelaide think he was not just talking about objects. She studied him more carefully, noting the way he held himself slightly apart, as if expecting at any moment to need to leave. It was a posture she understood. "There," Sam said, standing and brushing dust from his knees. "Should hold for a good while now, but you might want to get the wheelwright to look at it proper when you get into town." "Thank you." Adelaide meant it sincerely. "I do not have much, but if you would like some vegetables as payment." "No payment necessary." Sam's expression softened slightly. "But if you are heading to market, I could walk alongside. Been meaning to head into town myself." They fell into step together, Adelaide pulling the cart while Sam walked on her right side. The silence between them was comfortable in a way that surprised her. Since her father's passing, most conversations had been awkward affairs filled with poorly disguised pity or thinly veiled suggestions that she sell the farm and find a husband to take care of her. "How long have you been farming alone?" Sam asked after a while. "How did you know I was alone? The calluses on your hands. The way you are dressed practical, not pretty. The fact that you are willing to pull that heavy cart yourself rather than pay someone to transport your goods." He said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. "I recognize someone doing everything themselves because there is no one else to do it." Adelaide felt something loosen in her chest. 3 months since my father died. Heart gave out while he was working in the field. I found him there at sunset, lying between the tomato plants like he had just decided to take a rest. "I am sorry." And the way Sam said it made Adelaide believe he truly was. "What about you?" she asked. You said you drifted before settling at the ranch. Running from something or towards something? Sam was quiet for a long moment. Both, I suppose. Lost my parents and my younger sister to fever when I was 19. We had a small farm in Missouri. After they died, I could not bear to stay there, so I sold everything and headed west. Thought I would find something out here, but mostly I just found more dust and more work. Did you ever find what you were looking for? Did not even know what I was looking for until. Sam stopped abruptly, his cheeks coloring slightly. Until recently, I suppose. Adelaide felt her heart beat a little faster. She told herself it was just the heat and the exertion of pulling the cart, but she knew she was lying to herself. There was something about this quiet cowboy that called to something deep within her, something she had thought died along with her father. They reached the market square, and Adelaide set up her stall in her usual spot near the blacksmith shop. Sam helped her unload the crates, arranging them so the vegetables displayed to their best advantage. He had good instincts for it, putting the brightest tomatoes at eye level and the larger squash at the bottom where they anchored the display. "You have done this before," Adelaide observed. "Used to help my mother at market back home." A shadow crossed Sam's face, then cleared. She had a way of making even bruised apples look appealing. The morning passed quickly. Adelaide sold most of her tomatoes and a good number of carrots to various townspeople. Sam did not leave, instead standing slightly behind her stall in a way that made Adelaide feel protected without feeling crowded. She noticed that some of the rougher-looking men who usually made crude comments as they passed her stall thought better of it with Sam's quiet presence nearby. Around noon, a well-dressed woman approached the stall. She wore a purple dress with elaborate trim and carried a parasol that probably cost more than Adelaide made in a month. "I need vegetables for a dinner party tonight," the woman announced without preamble. "But I want them delivered to my house. Can you do that?" Adelaide calculated quickly. She had enough vegetables left to fill a decent order, but leaving her stall unattended for the time it would take to make a delivery meant losing potential customers. Still, a large order would mean good money. "I can deliver them," Sam said quietly, "if you trust me with your vegetables and your customer." Adelaide turned to look at him. They had known each other for all of a few hours, and yet there was something in his steady gaze that made her want to trust him. "I would appreciate that," she said. The transaction was completed quickly. The woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Patricia Hadley, gave Sam directions to her house on the better side of town. Sam loaded the vegetables carefully into a sack and tipped his hat to Adelaide before heading off. While he was gone, Adelaide found herself watching the direction he had gone more often than was strictly necessary. She scolded herself for being foolish. Sam was just being kind, the way any decent person might help a stranger. There was no reason to read anything more into it. But when he returned 30 minutes later with coins in his hand and a small wrapped package, Adelaide felt relief flood through her in a way that had nothing to do with the money. "Mrs. Hadley paid well," Sam said, placing the coins in Adelaide's hand. "And she gave me this to give to you." He held out the wrapped package. Inside was a thick slice of ham and 2 generous pieces of cornbread. Adelaide's eyes stung slightly. She had been making do with whatever vegetables she could spare from her sales, and the thought of actual meat was almost overwhelming. "That was kind of her," Adelaide managed. "She said any woman brave enough to farm alone deserved a decent meal." Sam hesitated. "I did not tell her about your situation. She seemed to know already." "Small town." Adelaide rewrapped the food carefully. "Everyone knows everything about everyone else." "Not everything," Sam said quietly. "I have been here 5 years, and I doubt anyone in town could tell you much about me beyond my name and where I work." "Is that by choice or by circumstance?" choice, mostly. Found it easier to keep to myself after losing my family. Hurt less that way. Sam met her eyes. But sometimes easy and good are not the same thing. Before Adelaide could respond, a commotion near the other end of the market square drew their attention. Two men were arguing loudly, their voices growing increasingly heated. Adelaide recognized one of them as Jack Morrison, a ranch hand known for his mean temper and fondness for whiskey. The other man she did not know, but from his clothes, she guessed he was a farmer. "You cheated me." The farmer was shouting. "These tools are broken, worthless. You bought them as is," Jack shot back. "Not my fault you were too stupid to check them proper before handing over your money." Sam moved slightly in front of Adelaide's stall, his body language shifting into something more alert. Adelaide noticed his hand resting near his hip. Though he wore no gun belt, the argument escalated quickly. Jack shoved the farmer, who stumbled backward into a produce cart. Apples rolled everywhere, and the cart's owner, old Mr. Chen, cried out in dismay. The farmer came up swinging, his fist connecting with Jack's jaw. Within seconds, several other men had joined the fray, some trying to break up the fight, others taking sides. Sam moved swiftly, positioning himself between the brawl and Adelaide's stall. When one of the fighting men stumbled in their direction, Sam caught him firmly by the shoulder and redirected him away. "We should pack up," Sam said quietly. "This is going to get worse before it gets better." He was right. Already Adelaide could hear the town marshal's whistle, and the crowd was growing larger and more agitated. Together, she and Sam quickly loaded the remaining vegetables back into her cart. By the time the marshal and his deputy arrived to restore order, Adelaide was ready to leave. They hurried away from the market square, Adelaide pulling her cart while Sam walked beside her, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Only when they were several streets away did Adelaide realize her hands were shaking. "Are you all right?" Sam asked, his voice gentle. "Yes, I do not like violence." Adelaide took a deep breath. "My father always said that fighting was what men did when they ran out of words and sense. Your father was a wise man." Sam glanced back toward the market square. "You should not have to witness such things. It is part of life here." Adelaide straightened her shoulders. "I cannot afford to be delicate about it." They walked in silence for a while, leaving the busier streets behind. Adelaide's farm was about an hour's walk from town, following the main road west before turning onto a smaller path that wound through grassland and scattered trees. "I will walk you home," Sam said. It was not a question, and Adelaide found she did not want to refuse. "What about your work at the ranch?" "It is my day off. I came to town to pick up some supplies, but that can wait." Sam adjusted his hat against the afternoon sun. "Besides, that wheel might give you trouble again, and it is a long walk to make twice if I have to come back to fix it." Adelaide smiled despite herself. Practical reasoning. "I am a practical man." But there was something in Sam's tone that suggested his motivations were not entirely practical at all. As they walked, they talked. Sam told her about life on the Double R Ranch, about the cattle drives and the long days in the saddle, about the other ranch hands and the ranch owner's family. Adelaide talked about her farm, about the challenges of maintaining the irrigation system her father had built, about the constant battle against pests and weather and her own exhaustion. "Why not sell?" Sam asked, but there was no judgment in the question, only curiosity. "You could probably get a decent price for the land and the house. Could move somewhere easier, maybe find work in town." "Because it was my father's dream," Adelaide said simply. "He came to Texas with nothing but hope and determination. Built that farm with his own hands, plant by plant, season by season. Selling it would feel like saying his life's work meant nothing. Sam nodded slowly. I understand that. After my family died, people kept telling me to move on, to forget, to start fresh somewhere new. But some things should not be forgotten, even when remembering hurts. Exactly. Adelaide felt a surge of gratitude that he understood. Besides, I am good at farming. My father taught me everything he knew. I just need to get through this first year alone, prove to myself and everyone else that I can do it. You will, Sam said with quiet conviction. Anyone strong enough to pull that cart through this heat, and stubborn enough to argue with me about accepting help with a broken wheel, is strong enough to do anything she sets her mind to. Adelaide laughed, surprised by the sound. She could not remember the last time she had laughed, really laughed, with genuine amusement. I was not arguing with you. You were thinking about arguing with me. I could see it in your eyes. Well, perhaps a little. They reached the turnoff to Adelaide's farm, and the path narrowed so that they had to walk closer together. Adelaide became acutely aware of Sam's presence beside her, the way his shoulder occasionally brushed hers, the steady rhythm of his breathing. The attraction she had been trying to ignore all day flared stronger, and she found herself stealing glances at his profile when she thought he was not looking. When they finally arrived at the farm, Sam stopped and stared. You maintain all of this yourself? Adelaide tried to see her home through his eyes. The house was small but sturdy, painted white with blue shutters that her father had insisted on because they reminded him of the sky. The vegetable garden stretched out behind the house in neat rows, and there was a chicken coop, a small barn, and a well that her father had dug the first year they arrived. It is not much, Adelaide said, suddenly self-conscious. It is impressive. Sam walked slowly around the property, examining the irrigation channels, the carefully tended plants, the repaired fence posts. Your father taught you well. This is the work of someone who knows and loves the land. Pride bloomed in Adelaide's chest. She had worked so hard these past 3 months, waking before dawn and working until she could barely see, all while wondering if anyone would ever recognize the effort she was putting in. To have Sam, this quiet cowboy she had only just met, see and acknowledge her work meant more than she could express. Thank you, she said softly. Sam turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made Adelaide's breath catch. I meant what I said earlier about it being my day off. If you need help with anything around here, I would be happy to stay and work for a bit. No payment necessary, just... He trailed off, looking slightly uncertain for the first time that day. Just, Adelaide prompted, just because I would like to. Sam's ears reddened slightly. If that is acceptable to you. Adelaide knew she should probably send him away. She barely knew this man, and inviting him to stay on her property, even to work, might give people the wrong impression. But she was tired of doing everything alone, tired of shouldering every burden by herself, tired of pretending she did not need help. The fence along the north side needs mending, she heard herself say. And the roof of the chicken coop has a hole that I have been trying to patch for weeks. Sam's face broke into a genuine smile, and Adelaide realized it was the first time she had seen him really smile. It transformed his entire face, erasing the weariness and revealing a warmth that made her heart flutter. Show me where the tools are, he said. They worked together through the afternoon. Sam mended the fence with efficient, practiced movements while Adelaide tended to her vegetables and fed the chickens. Every so often, Adelaide would glance over to see Sam's progress, and sometimes she would catch him looking her way too. Each time their eyes met, Adelaide felt that same flutter in her chest. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sam finished patching the chicken coop roof. Adelaide watched him climb down the ladder, admiring the easy strength in his movements. "That should hold for a good long while," Sam said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But you should probably get someone to check the whole structure come autumn. Some of those boards are getting old." "I will add it to the list." Adelaide gestured toward the house. "I was going to have that ham and cornbread for supper. Would you like to join me? It is the least I can do after all your help today." Sam hesitated, and Adelaide could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Part of him wanted to accept, but another part was clearly urging caution. Finally, he nodded. "I would like that very much." Adelaide's kitchen was small but clean, with a cast-iron stove that had been her mother's before her death years ago. She sliced the ham and warmed it along with the cornbread, then added some fresh tomatoes and cucumbers from her garden. It was a simple meal, but after a long day of work it felt like a feast. They sat at the small wooden table, and for a while they ate in comfortable silence. Adelaide was struck again by how easy it felt to be around Sam, how natural it seemed to have him in her space. It had been so long since she had shared a meal with anyone that she had forgotten what companionship felt like. "This is nice," Sam said quietly, echoing her thoughts. "I usually eat alone in the bunkhouse at the ranch. The other hands are friendly enough, but I have never been much for large groups." "I understand. My father and I used to eat together every evening right here at this table. He would tell me about his day, and I would tell him about mine. After he died, I found myself still setting 2 plates out of habit." Adelaide paused, surprised at her own openness. "I stopped doing that about a month ago. Felt like it was time to accept the reality." "Grief is strange," Sam said. "It comes in waves. Some days you think you are managing fine, and then something small, like setting out plates, reminds you of what you lost, and it hits you all over again." "Yes, exactly." Adelaide met his eyes across the table. "Most people do not understand that. They think grief should follow a schedule, that after a certain amount of time you should just be over it. People who think that have never really lost something that mattered." Sam's voice was rough with old pain. "It has been 8 years since I lost my family, and there are still days when I wake up and, for a moment, forget they are gone. Then reality comes crashing back." Adelaide reached across the table without thinking, placing her hand over his. Sam's hand was warm and solid beneath hers, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then Sam turned his hand over, his fingers curling gently around hers. "I am glad I met you today," Adelaide whispered. "I am glad too." Sam's thumb traced a slow circle on the back of her hand. "I was not planning to stop and talk to you this morning. Usually I keep to myself, mind my own business. But there was something about the way you looked, pulling that cart all alone, so determined and strong. I could not just walk past. I am glad you did not." They sat like that for a long moment, hands joined across the table, the last of the daylight streaming through the kitchen window. Adelaide felt something shifting inside her, like ice breaking up after a long winter. She had been so focused on survival these past months that she had not allowed herself to feel anything beyond exhaustion and determination. But sitting here with Sam, his hand warm in hers, she felt the stirring of something she had thought lost: hope. Eventually, Sam pulled his hand back reluctantly. "I should go. It is a long walk back to the ranch, and I will need to be up before dawn tomorrow." "Of course." Adelaide stood, trying not to feel disappointed. "Thank you again for all your help today." "Will you be going to market again this week?" Sam asked as they walked toward the door. "Friday morning, if I have enough vegetables ready. Would you mind if I met you on the road again? Could walk with you into town." Sam shifted his weight, suddenly looking uncertain. "Only if you want the company, that is." Adelaide felt warmth spread through her chest. "I would like that very much." Sam's smile returned, soft and genuine. "Then I will see you Friday morning. I will watch for you on the road around dawn." After he left, Adelaide stood in her doorway watching his figure grow smaller in the distance until darkness swallowed him completely. Then she went inside and cleaned up from supper, but her mind was full of Sam, replaying every conversation, every glance, every moment their hands had touched. She told herself not to get ahead of herself. Sam was just being kind, helpful. There was no reason to read romance into simple gestures. But her heart, so carefully guarded these past months, refused to listen to reason. The next few days passed slowly. Adelaide threw herself into her work, tending her crops and preparing for Friday's market trip. But no matter how busy she kept herself, her thoughts kept drifting back to Sam. She wondered what he was doing, if he was thinking about her too, if Friday would come quickly enough. Thursday evening, Adelaide took extra care with her appearance, washing her hair and pressing her best work dress. She told herself it was just because she wanted to look presentable for market, but she knew she was lying. She wanted to look nice for Sam. Friday morning, Adelaide was up before dawn, loading her cart in the thin pre-light. She had a good selection of vegetables this week, including some beautiful squash and the last of her early tomatoes. The cart was heavy, but her heart felt light as she set off down the road toward town. She had only been walking for about 15 minutes when she saw a figure approaching from the direction of the Double R Ranch. Even in the dim light, she recognized Sam's distinctive walk, and her heart beat faster. "Good morning," Sam said as he drew close. He looked like he had made an effort too, his shirt clean and his hair neatly combed. "Right on time." "Good morning." Adelaide could not keep the smile from her face. "Did you have a long week?" "Long enough. We spent 3 days rounding up strays in the south pasture. Hot work." Sam fell into step beside her cart. "But I kept thinking about today, and that made the time pass easier." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Adelaide felt her cheeks warm. "I thought about today too," she confessed, "and about you." Sam's hand found hers where it gripped the cart handle, his fingers sliding between hers. It was a bold move, far more intimate than their brief touch across the dinner table, but it felt right. Adelaide curled her fingers around his, and they walked like that for a while, hands joined, not speaking but not needing to. "Adelaide," Sam said finally, his voice serious, "I need to be honest with you about something." Adelaide's stomach clenched. Here it was, the moment when he would tell her he was married, or leaving town, or any of the dozen things that would make this impossible before it even began. "What is it?" "I am not a man of means. I have some savings, but not much. I live in a bunkhouse with 5 other ranch hands, and most of what I earn goes toward basic necessities and sending a bit back to my aunt in Missouri." Sam stopped walking, gently pulling Adelaide to a stop too. "I am telling you this because I want to be clear about my situation before we continue whatever this is between us." Relief flooded through Adelaide. "Sam, I live on a small farm and sell vegetables at market. I am not exactly wealthy either." "I know, but—" Sam struggled with his words. "I guess what I am trying to say is that if I were to court you properly, I could not offer you much in the way of material things. No fancy dresses or jewelry, no big house or life of leisure." Adelaide's heart swelled. "Are you asking to court me, Sam Barrett?" Sam met her eyes, and the vulnerability there made Adelaide want to wrap her arms around him. "I know we have only known each other a few days, and maybe it is too soon, but I cannot stop thinking about you. The way you smile when you talk about your farm, the way you pull that heavy cart without complaint, the way you made me feel welcome in your home. I have been alone for so long, Adelaide, and I am tired of it. So yes, I am asking to court you if you will have me." "Yes." Adelaide did not need to think about it. "Yes, Sam, I would very much like for you to court me." Sam's face lit up with joy, and then he was pulling her close, wrapping his arms around her right there in the middle of the dusty road. Adelaide let go of the cart and hugged him back, breathing in the scent of soap and leather and something uniquely Sam. It felt like coming home after a long journey. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were grinning like fools. Sam kept hold of Adelaide's hand as they resumed walking, and the rest of the journey to town passed in happy conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their childhoods, discussing their hopes for the future, laughing at silly jokes and observations. The market was busy when they arrived, and Adelaide set up her stall with Sam's help. This time, when he stood near her stall, it was not just as a helpful stranger but as someone who had a right to be there, and Adelaide felt a fierce pride knowing that this good man had chosen her. Throughout the morning, people began to notice them together. Adelaide saw the speculative glances from other vendors, heard the whispered conversations. She knew that by evening, all of Fort Worth would be buzzing with gossip about Adelaide Bennett and her cowboy. The thought made her smile rather than worry her. Around midday, Mrs. Hadley returned to Adelaide's stall. She was wearing a green dress today, equally elaborate as the purple one from earlier in the week. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Barrett," she greeted them both. "I need more vegetables for another gathering I am hosting, and I must say your produce was the talk of my last dinner party. Several of my guests asked where I had purchased such fine vegetables." Adelaide felt a surge of pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Hadley. That is very kind of you to say." Mrs. Hadley placed a large order, enough to nearly clear Adelaide's remaining stock. She also paid generously and told Adelaide that she should consider supplying vegetables regularly for the Hadley household. "My cook is particular about quality, and she was very impressed with what you provided." After Mrs. Hadley left, Adelaide turned to Sam with wide eyes. "Did that just happen? Did I just secure a regular customer from one of the wealthiest families in Fort Worth?" "You did." Sam pulled her into a quick, celebratory hug. "Because you are talented and hardworking, and people recognize quality when they see it." The rest of the market day passed in a blur of sales and conversations. By the time Adelaide packed up her empty cart, her coin purse was pleasantly heavy, and her heart felt even fuller. Sam had been by her side all day, helping customers, carrying heavy crates, and generally making her feel supported in a way she had not felt since her father's death. As they walked back toward her farm, the afternoon sun warm on their shoulders, Adelaide found herself thinking about the future in a way she had not dared to in months. With Sam beside her and the promise of regular business from the Hadley family, life suddenly seemed full of possibilities rather than just challenges to survive. "What are you thinking about?" Sam asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "About how much can change in just a few days." Adelaide glanced at him. "Last week, I was alone and struggling and wondering if I could really make this work. Today, I have a regular customer and someone who wants to court me. It feels almost too good to be true." "It is true." Sam squeezed her hand. "And it is going to get even better. You will see." When they reached Adelaide's farm, Sam helped her unload the empty crates and then, instead of leaving immediately, he asked, "What work needs doing this week?" Adelaide showed him several projects that had been weighing on her mind: a section of fence that needed replacing, a blocked irrigation channel, and the barn door that had come off its hinges. Sam assessed each task with a practiced eye, then nodded. "I have Sunday afternoon off next week. Could come by then and tackle at least a couple of these projects." He paused. "If that is acceptable to you, I would love that." Adelaide stepped closer to him. But Sam, you do not have to work every time you visit. You could come by just to spend time together. I know. But I like helping you. Sam reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Adelaide's ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Makes me feel useful, like I am part of something good. They stood like that for a long moment, Sam's hand against her face, Adelaide's eyes locked with his. The air between them felt charged with possibility, and Adelaide found herself swaying closer, drawn by a force she could not name. Sam leaned down slowly, giving Adelaide plenty of time to pull away if she wanted. But she did not want to pull away. She wanted this, wanted him, wanted to feel alive and desired and cherished. When his lips finally met hers, soft and questioning, Adelaide sighed into the kiss, her hands coming up to rest against his chest. The kiss was gentle, almost reverent, and it made Adelaide's toes curl in her boots. Sam's hand slid from her cheek to the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her hair, and Adelaide pressed closer, deepening the kiss. For a long, perfect moment, nothing existed beyond the two of them and the connection sparking between them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Sam rested his forehead against Adelaide's. I have been wanting to do that since the moment I first saw you pulling that cart down the road. I am glad you finally did. Adelaide's voice was breathless. Sam kissed her once more, quick and sweet, then stepped back reluctantly. I really should go, but I will see you Sunday. Sunday, Adelaide agreed. She watched him walk away until he disappeared from view, then touched her fingers to her lips, still feeling the warmth of his kiss. Her father had once told her that love came when you least expected it, often in the simplest moments. Standing in her farmyard with the taste of Sam on her lips and the memory of his arms around her, Adelaide thought her father might have been right. The next week passed in a haze of happiness. Adelaide worked in her garden with renewed energy, singing old songs her mother had taught her years ago. She prepared for Sunday's visit, cleaning the house and baking bread and trying not to count the hours until she would see Sam again. Sunday afternoon arrived sunny and warm. Adelaide had just finished changing into a clean dress when she heard footsteps approaching. She rushed to the door and found Sam walking up the path, carrying a small bag and wearing a smile that made her heart skip. "Hello," she said, unable to keep the joy from her voice. "Hello yourself." Sam set down his bag and pulled her into a kiss that made her forget everything else. When they broke apart, both grinning, he said, "I have been thinking about doing that for days." "Only thinking," Adelaide teased. "Well, dreaming too." Sam's ears reddened, but he held her gaze. Among other things, they spent the afternoon working side by side. Sam replaced the broken fence section while Adelaide worked in her garden, and every so often, one of them would find an excuse to be near the other, stealing kisses and touches. It was the happiest Adelaide had been in longer than she could remember. As evening approached, Adelaide invited Sam to stay for supper again. This time, she had prepared a proper meal: roasted chicken, fresh vegetables, and the bread she had baked that morning. They ate slowly, savoring both the food and each other's company. "Tell me more about your family," Adelaide said. "You mentioned a sister." Sam's expression grew distant. "Sarah. She was 15 when she died, just starting to become her own person. She loved music, used to sing while she did her chores. After she and my parents died, the silence in our house was unbearable. That is part of why I left." "I am so sorry, Sam." Adelaide reached across the table for his hand. "That must have been incredibly hard." "It was. For a long time, I thought I would never feel truly happy again. Figured I would just drift from place to place, working and existing but not really living." Sam squeezed her hand. "But then I met you, and I started to think that maybe happiness is possible after all." "I felt the same way after my father died," Adelaide admitted. Like all the color had drained out of the world, but you have brought some of that color back. They moved to the porch after supper, sitting on the steps and watching the sun set. Sam put his arm around Adelaide's shoulders and she leaned into him, feeling safe and cherished. The sky turned pink and gold, then purple, and finally deep blue as stars began to appear. "I should probably head back," Sam said reluctantly as full darkness fell. "But I do not want to leave." "Then do not. Not yet." Adelaide tilted her face up to his. "Stay a little longer." So Sam stayed, and they sat together in the darkness, talking quietly about their dreams and fears, about the small moments that made life worth living, about the future they were beginning to imagine together. When Sam finally did leave, it was late, and Adelaide walked him to the edge of her property, not ready to say goodbye. "Will I see you at market on Friday?" Adelaide asked. "You will see me before then." Sam kissed her softly. "I will find excuses to come into town during the week." "I cannot go 5 whole days without seeing you." He was true to his word. On Wednesday, Sam appeared at Adelaide's farm in the evening, claiming he had business in town and thought he would stop by on his way back to the ranch. They spent an hour together, sitting on her porch and talking, and Adelaide knew there had been no business in town. Sam had ridden out specifically to see her, and the knowledge made her heart swell. Friday at market, Sam was waiting for her on the road at dawn as promised. They walked together, holding hands and talking, and Adelaide marveled at how natural it all felt. It was as if Sam had always been part of her life, as if the lonely months after her father's death had been just a bad dream. The market day was successful again. Adelaide's vegetables were developing a reputation for quality, and several new customers sought out her stall. Mrs. Hadley stopped by to place another order and mentioned that her friends were asking for Adelaide's name. Sam stood beside Adelaide through it all, proud and supportive, and Adelaide felt like the luckiest woman in Texas. As summer deepened into August, Sam and Adelaide's relationship deepened too. They spent every moment they could together, stealing kisses in the barn and holding hands on evening walks around Adelaide's property. Sam had essentially moved some of his belongings to Adelaide's farm, keeping a change of clothes in her barn so he could ride over after work and stay late without worrying about the long journey back to the ranch in dirty clothes. The other ranch hands at the Double R had noticed Sam's frequent absences and teased him mercilessly, but Sam did not care. He had found something precious, something he thought he would never have, and he was not about to let it go. One evening in late August, Sam arrived at Adelaide's farm looking troubled. Adelaide noticed immediately, setting down the basket of tomatoes she had been carrying and hurrying to his side. "What is wrong?" she asked. Sam dismounted and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. "Nothing is wrong exactly, just some news I need to share with you." They sat on the porch steps, and Sam took Adelaide's hand. "The ranch owner, Mr. Richardson, called me into his office today. He is getting older and wants to step back from some of the day-to-day operations. He offered me a position as foreman, overseeing the other ranch hands and managing the cattle." "Sam, that is wonderful," Adelaide exclaimed. "You deserve it. You work harder than anyone. It comes with better pay and a small house on the ranch property instead of the bunkhouse." Sam paused. "But it also means more responsibility, longer hours, and less free time. I told Mr. Richardson I needed to think about it before accepting." "Why would you need to think about it?" Adelaide was confused. "This is a great opportunity. Because of you." Sam cupped her face in his hands. "Adelaide, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. If I take this position, I will have less time to spend with you, at least initially. I need to know if that is acceptable to you, if you are willing to weather the busy times knowing that eventually things will settle into a routine. Adelaide's heart felt too full for her chest. Sam, of course I am willing. I would never ask you to turn down such an opportunity for my sake. We will figure it out together. Together, Sam smiled. I like the sound of that. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Adelaide melted into him. When they finally broke apart, Sam said, "There is something else I need to ask you." "What is it?" Sam took a deep breath. "The house that comes with the foreman position has 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and enough land for a decent garden. It is small but solid, and it would be perfect for—" He trailed off, suddenly looking nervous. "Perfect for what?" Adelaide prompted, her heart beginning to race. "For a married couple." Sam slid off the porch step and knelt in front of Adelaide, still holding her hand. "Adelaide Bennett, I know we have only known each other a few months, but I am certain about this, about you, about us. You are the strongest, kindest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I love you. Will you marry me?" Adelaide's vision blurred with tears. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Sam, yes." Sam whooped with joy and pulled her down into his arms, kissing her face, her neck, her lips, anywhere he could reach. Adelaide laughed and cried at the same time, overwhelmed by happiness. "I do not have a ring yet," Sam said apologetically, "but I will get you one, I promise." "I do not need a ring." Adelaide framed his face with her hands. "I just need you." They stayed up late that night making plans. Sam would accept the foreman position and move into the house. Adelaide would keep her farm but scale back her planting to focus on quality over quantity, supplying the Hadley family and a few other select customers. They would marry as soon as arrangements could be made, perhaps in early September, before the busy autumn season started. "What about your farm?" Sam asked. "I do not want you to feel like you have to give up everything your father built." "I am not giving it up. I am expanding," Adelaide smiled. "The house will stay empty during the week, but we can use it on weekends, keep some chickens and a small garden there. And maybe someday, if we have children, they can play in the same fields where I worked with my father." "Children?" Sam's voice was soft with wonder. I had stopped letting myself think about having a family of my own. "Well, you better start thinking about it again." Adelaide kissed him. "Because I want children with you, Sam Barrett. I want everything with you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Sam accepted the foreman position and threw himself into his new responsibilities with characteristic dedication. Mr. Richardson was pleased with his choice, and the other ranch hands, though initially skeptical of having one of their own elevated above them, quickly came to respect Sam's fair and hard-working leadership style. Adelaide continued her market trips, though now she had help. Sam arranged for one of the younger ranch hands, a 16-year-old named Tommy who was eager to earn extra money, to assist Adelaide with transportation and setup on market days. This freed Adelaide to focus on customer relationships and sales while Tommy handled the heavy lifting. They set their wedding date for the second Saturday in September. It would be a small ceremony at the church in Fort Worth, with just a handful of friends and acquaintances in attendance. Adelaide had no family left, and Sam's only living relative, his aunt in Missouri, was too elderly to travel. But neither of them minded. They had each other, and that was enough. Mrs. Hadley, upon hearing of the engagement, insisted on helping Adelaide prepare. She took Adelaide to the dressmaker and paid for a beautiful dress in cream-colored cotton with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Adelaide protested the expense, but Mrs. Hadley waved off her concerns. "My dear, you provide me with the finest vegetables in town, and you have never once overcharged me or tried to pass off inferior goods as quality," Mrs. Hadley said firmly. "Consider this my wedding gift to you and your young man." Every bride deserves to feel beautiful on her wedding day. The dress was the nicest thing Adelaide had ever owned, and when she tried it on, she felt like a different person. Not a struggling farmer or a lonely orphan, but a woman about to start a new chapter of her life with a man she loved deeply. Sam, meanwhile, was working with Mr. Richardson to prepare the foreman's house. It had been empty for several years and needed some repairs and cleaning. Sam spent his evenings painting walls, fixing loose boards, and making the place livable. Adelaide helped when she could, and slowly the little house transformed into a home. The week before the wedding, Adelaide stood in what would soon be their bedroom, watching Sam install new curtains she had sewn. The room was small but cozy, with a large window that overlooked the ranch's eastern pastures. In the mornings, they would wake to sunlight and the sounds of cattle lowing in the distance. "What do you think?" Sam asked, stepping back to admire his work. "I think it is perfect." Adelaide wrapped her arms around him from behind. "I think we are going to be very happy here." Sam turned in her embrace and kissed her forehead. "I know we will be. Adelaide, I need you to know something. I have been thinking a lot about the future, about the life we are going to build together. I have been thinking about it too. I want you to know that I see us as partners in everything. This house, my work, your farm, any children we might have, all of it is ours together. I will never expect you to simply follow along with my decisions or give up your own dreams for mine." Sam's voice was earnest. "We are a team and we make choices together." "Agreed, agreed." Adelaide's eyes stung with happy tears. After months of shouldering every burden alone, the idea of having a true partner was almost overwhelming. "I love you, Sam. I love you too." He kissed her softly. "Now, we should probably head into town. We have a marriage license to obtain and a preacher to confirm with." The day before the wedding, Adelaide spent hours at her farm, saying a private goodbye to the life she had lived there. She walked through her father's fields, touching the plants he had nurtured, standing by his grave marker in the small plot behind the house. She told him about Sam, about her happiness, about how she hoped he would approve of the man she was marrying. "I think you would have liked him, Papa," she whispered. "He is kind and hardworking, and he makes me laugh. He reminds me a little of you, actually. The way he sees problems as challenges to solve rather than obstacles to fear. The way he treats me like an equal. I wish you could have met him." She stayed there until sunset, letting herself cry for what she had lost while also allowing herself to feel excited for what lay ahead. When she finally walked back to the house, she felt at peace. Her father would always be part of her, but it was time to move forward and build a new life. Sam met her at the farm that evening as planned. He had borrowed a wagon to transport Adelaide's belongings to their new home, and together they loaded her clothes, her mother's dishes, and the few other possessions she treasured most. They left the house clean and tidy, ready for its new role as a weekend retreat and future playhouse for children not yet born. That night, Adelaide stayed in town at Mrs. Hadley's house, as was proper for a bride the night before her wedding. Mrs. Hadley fussed over her like a mother hen, making sure Adelaide ate a good dinner and got enough rest. In the morning, she helped Adelaide dress and arranged her hair in a simple but elegant style. "You look radiant," Mrs. Hadley said, her eyes bright with tears. "Your young man is very lucky." "I am the lucky one," Adelaide replied, but she was smiling. The church was small and plain, but someone had decorated it with wildflowers, and sunlight streamed through the windows in golden shafts. Adelaide stood at the back, waiting for her cue to walk down the aisle, and felt surprisingly calm. This was right. Sam was right. Everything was exactly as it should be when the music started and Adelaide began her walk. She saw Sam standing at the altar in his best clothes, his hair neatly combed, his face radiating joy. Their eyes met, and Adelaide felt her own joy mirror his. This man, this good, kind, strong man, was about to become her husband. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about partnership and faith. Sam and Adelaide exchanged simple gold bands that Sam had purchased with his first month's pay as foreman. When the preacher finally said, "You may kiss your bride," Sam cupped Adelaide's face tenderly and kissed her with a sweetness that made several women in the audience sigh. "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Barrett," the preacher announced, and the small gathering erupted in applause. The celebration afterward was held at the Hadley home. Mrs. Hadley had insisted on hosting, and she had prepared a wonderful meal with contributions from several other townspeople. Adelaide was touched by the generosity of people who, just months ago, had been strangers to her. As the evening wore on, Sam pulled Adelaide aside onto the Hadleys' porch. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happier than I ever thought possible." Adelaide leaned into him. "Thank you for stopping to help me with my cart that day. Thank you for letting me." Sam kissed her temple. "I saw you, Adelaide, really saw you in a way I had not seen anyone in years. Saw your strength and your determination, your kindness and your beauty. I knew in that moment that you were going to change my life. We changed each other's lives." Adelaide turned to face him. "I was so lost after my father died, so focused on just surviving that I forgot about actually living. You reminded me what it felt like to hope, to dream, to love." They swayed together in the twilight, holding each other close, not needing words. Around them, the sounds of celebration continued, but Sam and Adelaide were in their own world, just the two of them starting their new life together. Later that night, they finally made their way to their new home. Sam carried Adelaide over the threshold in the traditional way, both of them laughing at the silliness and romance of it. Inside, the little house glowed with lamplight, and Adelaide felt a surge of contentment. This was theirs, a space they would fill with love and laughter and, someday, the sound of children. Their first night as husband and wife was everything Adelaide had hoped for and more. Sam was gentle and patient, taking his time to make sure Adelaide felt safe and cherished. They explored each other with wonder and growing confidence, whispering words of love and devotion in the darkness. When Adelaide finally fell asleep in Sam's arms, she felt complete in a way she had never felt before. The next morning, Adelaide woke to Sam kissing her shoulder and whispering "Good morning, wife" in her ear. She stretched lazily, feeling deliciously content and thoroughly loved. They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making love again, in no hurry to face the world outside their bedroom. Eventually, hunger drove them to the kitchen, where they prepared a simple breakfast together. Adelaide scrambled eggs while Sam made coffee, and they worked in easy harmony, already falling into the rhythms of married life. They ate at their small table, feet touching beneath it, smiling at each other over their coffee cups. "I need to check on the ranch this afternoon," Sam said reluctantly. "Just for a few hours. Mr. Richardson gave me the weekend off, but I want to make sure everything is running smoothly." "I understand." Adelaide reached across to squeeze his hand. "I should probably check on my farm too, make sure everything is all right there." "We could go together," Sam suggested. "Check the ranch first, then ride out to your farm." "Our farm," he corrected himself with a smile. So that is what they did. At the Double R Ranch, the other hands greeted them with good-natured teasing and congratulations. Tommy, the young man who had been helping Adelaide with her market trips, presented them with a hand-carved picture frame he had made himself. Adelaide was touched by the gesture. At Adelaide's farm, Everything was as they had left it. They spent a pleasant hour walking the property, making plans for the future. Sam suggested expanding the irrigation system and possibly adding some fruit trees. Adelaide liked both ideas and contributed her own thoughts about crop rotation and soil enrichment. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Sam pulled Adelaide down to sit beside him on the porch steps. "I have been thinking," he said, "about what you said regarding children playing in these fields someday." Adelaide's heart skipped. "Yes, I would like that very much. A family with you, children who have your stubbornness and my height, who grow up knowing they are loved and wanted." Sam's voice was soft with emotion. "Is that what you want too, more than anything?" Adelaide rested her head on his shoulder. "A house full of noise and laughter, children running through the fields, teaching them everything our parents taught us. Yes, Sam, that is exactly what I want." They sat together as darkness fell, dreaming aloud about their future. Sam talked about teaching his sons and daughters to ride, about family dinners around their table, about growing old together surrounded by grandchildren. Adelaide described holiday celebrations and birthday parties, bedtime stories and scraped knees kissed better. Life settled into a comfortable routine over the following months. Sam threw himself into his work as foreman, earning the respect of both Mr. Richardson and the ranch hands through his fair leadership and tireless work ethic. Adelaide continued her vegetable business, now focused primarily on supplying the Hadley family and a few other wealthy households in Fort Worth. The arrangement gave her steady income without the exhausting effort of maintaining a huge market presence. They spent their evenings together in their little house, cooking dinner and talking about their days. On weekends, they often rode out to Adelaide's farm, maintaining it and enjoying the peace of the countryside. Their love deepened with each passing day, and Adelaide marveled at how natural and right it all felt. In December, Adelaide missed her monthly courses. She waited another week to be certain, then told Sam one evening as they sat by their fireplace. Sam's reaction was immediate and joyful. He picked Adelaide up and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "A baby," he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. "Adelaide, we are going to have a baby." "You are happy?" Adelaide asked, though his reaction had made the answer obvious. "Happy does not begin to cover it." Sam knelt beside Adelaide's chair and placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "This is everything I lost when my family died and everything I thought I would never have again. You have given me so much, Adelaide. A home, a purpose, love, and now a child." How could I be anything but overjoyed? The pregnancy was not easy. Adelaide suffered from morning sickness that lasted well into the afternoon, and her energy flagged more than she wanted to admit. But Sam was attentive and supportive, taking on extra household duties without complaint and making sure Adelaide rested when she needed to. Mrs. Hadley, upon learning of the pregnancy, became even more protective of Adelaide. She sent her cook over regularly with nourishing meals and insisted that Adelaide reduce her work schedule. "You have one job now," Mrs. Hadley told her firmly, "growing a healthy baby. Everything else can wait." As Adelaide's belly grew, so did her excitement. She sewed baby clothes and blankets, often sitting with Sam in the evenings as he carved a cradle from oak wood. They talked endlessly about names, about hopes for their child, about the kind of parents they wanted to be. "I want our children to know they are loved unconditionally," Adelaide said one night as Sam rubbed her aching feet. "I want them to feel safe to make mistakes and ask questions, to know that home is always a place of acceptance and support." "They will know that," Sam assured her. "We will make sure of it." In late August, Exactly 1 year after Sam and Adelaide had met, Adelaide went into labor. It was a long and difficult process, and there were moments when Sam feared he might lose her. But Adelaide was strong, and with the help of the doctor and Mrs. Hadley, who refused to leave Adelaide's side, she brought their son into the world just after dawn. The baby was healthy and loud, with a head full of dark hair and his father's eyes. Sam held him with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face as he looked from his son to his wife. "He is perfect," Sam whispered. "Adelaide, he is absolutely perfect." They named him James Bennett Barrett after Adelaide's father. Little James, as they immediately began calling him, was a good baby who nursed well and slept in predictable cycles. Adelaide recovered quickly from the birth, and within a few weeks, she was back to her normal routines, though now with a baby on her hip. Fatherhood transformed Sam in subtle but profound ways. He was even more focused at work, driven by the need to provide for his growing family. But he also made sure to spend quality time with James and Adelaide, often coming home during his lunch break just to hold his son and kiss his wife. "I never knew I could feel this way," Sam confessed one evening as he rocked James to sleep. "Like my heart exists outside my body, in you and in him." "It is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. I know exactly what you mean." Adelaide watched her husband with their son, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Every day I think I cannot possibly love you more, and every day I am proven wrong." James grew quickly, meeting each milestone with the determination that both his parents possessed. He was walking by 10 months and getting into everything by his first birthday. Sam and Adelaide threw a small party to celebrate, inviting the ranch hands, Mrs. Hadley, and a few other friends they had made in Fort Worth. As Adelaide watched her husband chase their laughing son around the yard while the guests cheered them on, she thought about how much her life had changed in just 2 years. She had gone from a lonely, grieving woman struggling to survive to a wife and mother surrounded by love and community. And it had all started with a broken cartwheel and a kind cowboy who had stopped to help. 2 years after James was born, Adelaide gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah Rose, after Sam's sister and Adelaide's mother. Sarah was a quiet, contemplative baby, the opposite of her boisterous brother, and she wrapped both her parents around her tiny finger from day one. With 2 children, life became busier and more chaotic, but Adelaide and Sam handled it with the same teamwork that had defined their relationship from the start. They took turns with nighttime feedings, shared childcare duties, and made sure to carve out time for just the 2 of them whenever possible. Sam had been promoted again at the ranch, now serving as general manager under Mr. Richardson. The additional responsibility and pay allowed Adelaide to stop her vegetable business entirely and focus on their children and home. She did not miss the work, though she still maintained a kitchen garden and sometimes sent produce to Mrs. Hadley as a gift. When James was 4 and Sarah was 2, Mr. Richardson called Sam into his office with unexpected news. The elderly rancher was ready to retire fully and wanted to sell the Double R Ranch. He offered Sam first right of purchase at a fair price, with the understanding that Sam could make payments over time rather than needing the full amount up front. Sam came home that evening looking dazed. He explained the situation to Adelaide, and together they sat at their kitchen table running numbers and considering possibilities. It would be a huge undertaking, a massive financial commitment, but it would also mean security for their family and a legacy to pass down to their children. "What do you want to do?" Adelaide asked. "I want to say yes," Sam admitted, "but I will not make this decision without you. This affects all of us." Adelaide reached across the table for his hand. "Then we say yes together." The process of purchasing the ranch took several months, involving lawyers and bank loans and mountains of paperwork. But eventually, in the spring of 1884, Sam signed the final documents, and the Double R Ranch officially became the Barrett Ranch. Sam kept most of the existing staff, including Tommy, who at 21 had become one of the most reliable hands on the property. He made improvements slowly and carefully, always mindful of their budget, but also determined to build something lasting and successful. Adelaide threw herself into supporting Sam's endeavor. She took over managing the ranch's accounts, discovering she had a talent for organization and numbers. She also began hosting occasional dinners for neighboring ranchers and their wives, building relationships that helped establish the Barrett Ranch as a respected operation. Their family continued to grow. Adelaide gave birth to twin boys when Sarah was 3, 2 identical rascals they named Daniel and Thomas. The house was filled with noise and laughter, and the controlled chaos of raising 4 young children. Sam built an addition onto the house, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. Through it all, Sam and Adelaide's love remained the foundation of everything. They still stole moments alone when they could, still held hands while walking the property, still looked at each other with the same wonder and affection that had characterized their earliest days together. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Sam surprised Adelaide with a trip to her father's farm. He had been working on it in secret for months, restoring the house and building a new barn. "I know you have been too busy to get out here much," Sam said, as Adelaide stood staring in amazement at the transformed property. "But I did not want you to lose this connection to your father, so I thought we could use this place as a family retreat, somewhere to come when we need peace and quiet." Adelaide threw her arms around her husband, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "Have I told you lately that I love you? Not in the last hour." Sam grinned and pulled her close. "Better remind me." So she did, kissing him with all the passion and devotion she felt. Even after 10 years of marriage, the spark between them had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger, deepened by shared experiences and the life they had built together. The children loved the renovated farm. James, now 9, enjoyed helping his father with the animals they kept there. Sarah, at 7, planted her own garden with Adelaide's guidance. The twins, barely out of toddlerhood, mostly enjoyed running through the fields and getting into mischief. As the years passed, the Barrett Ranch flourished under Sam's management. He gained a reputation as a fair employer and a skilled cattleman, and the ranch became one of the most successful operations in the area. Adelaide's role evolved too. She started teaching other ranch wives and daughters about managing household accounts and kitchen gardens, sharing the skills her father had taught her years ago. Their children grew into capable, confident young people. James showed an aptitude for ranching and made it clear he intended to follow in his father's footsteps. Sarah surprised everyone by developing a passion for numbers and expressing interest in the business side of the ranch operations. The twins were still young enough that their interests changed weekly, but they were bright and curious boys who kept their parents on their toes. When James turned 16, Sam took him on his first cattle drive. Adelaide waited anxiously for their return, keeping herself busy with the younger children but worrying constantly. When father and son finally rode back into the ranch yard 2 weeks later, both sunburned and exhausted but grinning, Adelaide felt relief wash over her. "He did well," Sam told her that night as they prepared for bed. "Really well. He is going to be a fine rancher someday. He learned from the best." Adelaide kissed her husband's cheek. "I am proud of both of you. Life was not without its challenges." They weathered droughts that tested their resources, harsh winters that claimed livestock, and the usual ups and downs of raising children and running a business. But Sam and Adelaide faced everything together, their partnership as strong as ever. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Adelaide stood on the porch of their home watching the sun set over the Barrett ranch. Sam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About the day we met. About how different my life would be if you had not stopped to help me with that cart." Adelaide covered his hands with hers. "About how lucky I am. I am the lucky one." Sam turned her around to face him. "You came into my life selling vegetables, and somehow you convinced a lonely cowboy to trade his whole heart in return. Best deal I ever made." Adelaide laughed, the sound bright and joyful in the evening air. "I think we both came out ahead in that trade." They kissed as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Around them, their ranch hummed with life, their children's voices calling to each other in the distance, the lowing of cattle a familiar soundtrack. 20 years ago, Adelaide had been alone and struggling, unsure if she could survive on her own. 20 years ago, Sam had been adrift, isolated by grief and convinced he would never feel truly connected to anyone again. But fate had brought them together on a dusty Texas road, and they had built something beautiful from that chance meeting. Their love story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was quiet and steady, built on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep abiding affection that grew stronger with each passing year. It was morning coffee and evening walks. It was standing side by side through hard times. It was the small daily choices to put each other first. As they stood together watching darkness fall over the land they had built together, Adelaide sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. For the broken cartwheel that had changed everything. For the kind cowboy who had stopped to help. For the life they had created together, full of love and purpose and belonging. "Ready to go inside?" Sam asked softly. "In a minute." Adelaide leaned her head against his shoulder. "I just want to stand here with you a little longer." So they stood together in the twilight, surrounded by everything they had built and everyone they loved. Two people who had found each other when they both needed it most, and had created something extraordinary from that simple beginning. The vegetable trade that had brought them together was long forgotten, but the love that had grown from it would last all their days and beyond, a legacy as enduring as the land beneath their feet. And as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Adelaide Bennett Barrett knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the person she was meant to be with, living exactly the life she was meant to live.